movement. At this point, I would like you to trace my idea as a movement and how the Reformed theology moved out from Germany and again across history. A catalyst is actually a substance that increases the rate of chemical reaction without itself undergoing any permanent chemical change, and so is the 95 Thesis. That is why 95 Thesis catalyst condition. Reformation is a movement because they spark a widespread, not an isolated, but a long-lasting transformation in the church involving collective actions and profound ongoing religious and societal change. So let me offer number one, the catalytic effect and intellectual reformation. Actually, ang intellectual reformation siguro yan ay gusto na daan. But the 95 Theses were the greatest intellectual scandal. Si Martin Luther, this scandal, first time in the history of the church to read and hear such an exposition of the Word of God. Siguro may TikTok lang si Martin Luther. So wala na si Metas si Martin Luther ang bilog ang kalibutan ng labot sa Reformation movement in Australia. Sigurado yung intellectual pagbabuhin sila ito nun. That is why I label it as an intellectual scandal in the history of the church that led people in general into chaos and upheaval. We will look now in effect some 95 is the time. So the intellectual scandal in the sense that the 95 Theses were not just a set of complaints or theological debates, but a bold and shocking challenge that shook the intellectual and the theological foundation of Catholicism. Luther's thesis questioned the established teaching, authority, and the practice of the church, which was mainly believed to be untouchable. This caused an intellectual upheaval because it exposed problems within the church that had long been accepted and ignored. Moreover, what escalated the general public into chaos and upheaval was, in 1518, the translation of Luther's 95 Theses from Latin now into German, which was widely distributed. Therefore, thanks to the printing press. Balik printing press daw, dumuli si TikTok ba? So nga din si TikTok, din subong din si Luther na tao, skandalo sa 95 Theses. Oh my goodness. Hindi ang mag-viral bilog na, I don't know how many years. So thanks to the 95 Theses, thanks to the miracles of the printing press, Luther's words quickly spread, reaching the hands and hearts of the ordinary men and women, not just the clergy and the scholars. For the first time, people could read and grasp the truth that he proclaimed on themselves as they did. They began to question the authority and the practice of the church, sparking the flames of intellectual information. Meaning, mas namin galing kumintindihan to church members. Most likely in 95 Theses, about my good. At this point of our dialogue, I will show you, not all, but some of the documents of Martin Luther, which I considered not just part of the intellectual reformation, but an era of intellectual scandal. Number two, the sermon. Ang una naging parts of the intellectual scandal, ang sermonia sa indulgences in grace in March 15, 18. This sermon effectively made Luther a household name and with its concise 20 points attacking indulgences and false security be offered to believers. Unlike the more academic 95 thesis, the sermon Indulgences and Grace was acceptable to the common people and became even more influential than the thesis during this period. The source information. Followed by the Heidelberg Disputation. Pagkatligat sa isa ka bulan na buwan sa Heidelberg Disputation in April 1518. Amid the turmoil surrounding Martin Luther's 95 theses, he was invited to introduce his theology at the triannual meeting of his Augustinian Germans in Heidelberg. The Heidelberg Disputation took place in April 1518 and in a lecture hall in the liberal arts faculty at the university. On this occasion, Luther carefully crafted 28 theological theses and proofs along with the 12 philosophical theses attacking Aristotle. He impressed Johann Grins of Württemberg and Martin Luther in Starburg, and several other significant future reformers who attended the disputation. The source of information in this slide. Number 4, intellectual scandal. The explanation of the 95 theses in August 15, 18. 4 months later, in this work, Luther expanded by the key points of this thesis, emphasizing salvation by faith alone and criticizing the abuses of indulgences and the concept of purgatory. It was also during this period that Luther's confrontation with Bumuanay head on to the Cardinal Cajetan that died in Würzburg began, which ultimately escalated the conflict between Luther and the papacy. Number 5, on his Babylonian captivity of the church, October 1520, 2 months after, in his work, Luther critiques on the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church based on the interpretation of the Bible. He supports offering the Eucharist cup to the laity, but rejects the doctrine of transubstantiation while affirming Christ's real presence in the Eucharist, and denies that the Mass is sacrificed to God. For baptism, he said, he asserts it justifies only when paired with faith. Through it remains foundational for salvation. Another argues that only baptism, the Eucharist, and the penance are the true sacraments due to the divine institution. But strictly speaking, only baptism and the Eucharist qualify as sacraments due to the visible signs. He denies that confirmation, matrimony, holy orders, and extreme unction are sacraments. Number 6, intellectual scandal. When he wrote the book, The Freedom of the Christian, in 1520, from the pages of this book states, the Christian is perfectly free, Lord of all, subject to none. A Christian is perfectly dutiful, servant of all, subject to all. Intellectual scandal. Another page, for one thing,